Hey, what's going on, ADPI Nation? Another amazing guest for you on the ADPI podcast. That is the Active Duty Passive Income podcast if you're a first-time listener. My name is Kevin Brenner. I am the host of the show, and we bring some amazing military real estate investors, whether they're active duty military, they're veterans, they're military families, even military brats. We bring them on, and we talk about real estate investing, and we talk about how to actually achieve financial freedom, the tactical and practical, the no BS way to do it. And today's guest is no different. Today's guest is super successful on the real estate sales side, on the real estate investing side, and all around great dude who is an active duty passive income member in the community, constantly contributing, constantly inspiring, constantly motivating. I'm proud to welcome KC McKeown to the show. Welcome, brother. What's up?
Hey, appreciate it.
So KC, I understand you're a Marine Corps veteran.
Correct.
So I have to assume that your diet no longer consists of crayons, or you still got some...
Well, my diet doesn't consist of much at all. Unfortunately, I try to start a diet and it doesn't really stick. So
I tell you what, I'm on this new thing. I'm on this this track your macros situation. I learned through my mastermind, and I'm doing I got the app, and I've been doing it for a week, and I come home
and you're tired.
I'm exhausted and I'm hungry, and all I want to do is just rip open a bag of Doritos and just crush it. But I know I've been good for a week.
You can count those macros. You can portion out your like 3 Cheetos or whatever.
My 3 Cheetos, and that's like the move. But I'm trying it out. And we're going to see where it goes because, I got one of those DEXA scan situations, and they told me I got, I came back and told my wife, I was like, hey, you're right. I am kind of fat.
No, you
she was
can.
Like, I was just kidding. If
you actually
I was
stick with it, if you stick with it consistently, even though it's incredibly hard, you'll see a huge change. But it's the Friday evening where you want, a late night snack. That's going to get to you.
It's the cravings. But beyond diet talk, we're here really to talk about real estate investing. But let's start, KC. Hit me with your military background, man. Tell me your military story.
Yeah. So I, honestly, military was never even something that I was going to consider. Going through school in general, my mom was an educator, went to college. My dad didn't. They enforced college essentially as soon as I understood what college was. So I just assumed, just like everyone else did, that, you really grew up alongside was, college. A relationship changed that, at the ripe age of 18, when I just graduated college or high school, I decided to stick around for a relationship, and didn't pan out. So military was the quickest and the easiest option. So at 19, I joined the Marine Corps, and just back then it was you sign up in 2 weeks, you get, shipped off. So, that led me at 19 to the Marine Corps. But I always kind of had more of an intellectual and analytical side, to where, my focus was math. I wanted to go into the Marine Corps to be able to get out of the Marine Corps, to get my school paid for, but still have some kind of experience in the Marine Corps that would apply to the real world. I had a lot of friends, 0311, ground side, not necessarily something that could entirely apply to more civilian, jobs. So I went in as a supply and accounting, MOS 6672, aviation supply and accounting. And I think I lasted 3 months in the accounting office. So thankfully the Marine Corps also saved me a bunch of college money too, because otherwise I would have probably got a degree in accounting and hated it. So, there's always a bright side to everything. And, got a lot of the discipline from growing up wrestling, that led me to, my high school wrestling coach is probably one of my biggest mentors, but he led me into signing up for the Marine Corps, as choosing, when I was choosing which branch, and then got out at the age of 23, did the whole college thing, and realized, the 9-to-5 job was not going to be suitable, hopefully, for forever. And I think I worked 2 years.
Yeah. So there's a little bit to unpack there that, I'm interested in talking about kind of that, you kind of got into like the whole supply and accounting thing, but then you realize that it's not good. And the good thing about the Marine Corps is, guess what? Everyone's a rifleman, baby.
Yeah. Well, the good thing is, you know, I mean, my 2 years of career was teaching high school. So I got an even, you know, flashback a bit for me, you know, teaching juniors and seniors. The likelihood of you understanding and knowing what you want at the age of 16, 17, 18, and actually pursuing that, you know, for the rest of your life is so incredibly unlikely. So, you know, me actually joining the Marine Corps, not intentionally, just kind of on a whim, you know, saved me, you know, because like I said, I would have, who knows if I'd be sitting down at an accounting, you know, firm right now, just miserable, you know, so everything works out.
Yeah, that's right. So you know, after your time in the Marines, you left, you went to college, and then you said you became a teacher. What were you teaching?
Yeah, so my, again, analytical background, math had really always been my forte. That's kind of why I wanted to go the accounting route, because it had math involved. I don't think I enjoyed or really went any direction in the science realm. So, and then the, you know, the aid of, you know, having a mother that was an educator, and she was not a single mom, but dad was always traveling for work and never around. So it was kind of like, you know, mom did all the work. And I was like, okay, well, as a teacher, as an educator, I'm going to be able to be around my future family and kids. So that's really the direction I wanted to go. Was, hey, it's not going to be incredible pay, but at least I'll be able to be around my family, you know, kids someday. The biggest game changer was when I stepped foot into that first year of teaching and coaching, and there was no girlfriend, there was no family, there was no kids, and I was like, what do I do with all this extra time that I thought I was going to be using for the future that's not here yet?
Yeah, and it's kind of, you know, you're alluding to this, and you actually already said it, but how, you know, we have these visions of what our life is going to be like, and they start maybe as little as 8, 10, 12, 15. Someone in my mastermind, you know, was talking about, like, he's talking to his therapist about, like, he had this vision of being this rock star person when he was 10 years old, and he had this vision. Now he's dealing with that now in his 30s. He's still incredibly successful. That's the crazy part. But he's never measured up to what his 10-year-old self said he was going to be. And
that's wild.
But you have, the point is, you have these visions, but your life changes along the way. And it's never about the destination, always about the journey. And it sounds cliche and all that crap, but it's true.
It's true.
And if you're strong enough, honestly, dude, if you're strong, and you know this, but for our listeners out there, if you feel like you're struggling, you feel like you're unhappy and you're not fulfilled, I challenge you to make a move. Try something new, because you want to know something? You got one life. You got one life. Everyone has the same 24 hours in the day as you do. And it's within your power to go and find something that gives you true fulfillment. So, you know, and maybe I'm just riffing right now, because I just spent 2 days I spent 2 days in the Pentagon on my reserve duty. Oh my God, these people, that sucks the life out of you.
Yeah, a lot of what you're saying, honestly, is really what, you know, because there was a huge mind shift change, and I've been talking about mindset a lot, and what really happened in my late 20s, I guess you could say, and that's really when real estate started for me, at the age of 27, when I first started teaching. But it was a mind shift change of, like, understanding, just like a lot of what you just said, like, hey, I'm almost done with my 20s. Like, is this going to be, because my mom's almost to hit year 40 of middle school PE, you know,
Wow.
and she can't retire. Is that going to be me? You know, am I going to be, you know, my dad didn't go to college, but he worked 41 or 42 years at the same company and retired. And I was sitting there, you know, thinking to myself, I can't imagine, you know, doing this for the next 40 years of my life, and especially for the pay. And, you know, sure, you've got a little bit of flexibility in your life, you know, with, you know, summers off, and, you know, typically some regular business hours, I guess you could say, you know, except when you're a coach and you've got your season and whatnot. But, you know, you're right. We all have the same 24 hours. And I tell a lot of people, and I speak to a lot of people, you know, and a lot of people may be listening to this too, that, you know, are maybe where I was, you know, 5.5 years ago, when I was 27, back in 2016, 2017, kind of when I first got into real estate, where they're not understanding necessarily which direction to go or what to do. I was working a full-time job and coaching, and then did real estate on the side to basically work, the minute I woke up to the minute I went to bed. But I knew long term, by me doing that, I was going to get somewhere much further in life than I was just, working the 9 to 5, getting up every single day.
Yeah. And I love talking to high performing agents like yourself. And we're going to get into your real estate agent and the sales side in a minute. But when I interviewed Ryan Serhant on this exact podcast, he told me something that was just super profound. And he's like, you don't understand. I came to New York City to be an actor. He came to New York City to become an actor. And he was doing, I forget, he was doing like some like terrible like performances in the park and stuff like that, and not getting paid, like the whole thing. And he's like, when I dedicated myself to real estate, I did not take a break. I worked 7 days a week for 3 years to get to where I am, to pretty much build the foundation to get to where he is now with Serhant Media and the whole thing. But that level of dedication is insane. It sounds insane to a lot of people, especially a lot of people in the military. They work in government jobs. They're like, whoa, wait, I don't get my 4-day weekend and all this stuff. Y'all, if you want to put the work in, put the work in. Because the cool thing is when you're actually fulfilled from a job, it doesn't feel like work. It's legitimately fun. Like, I don't know about you, KC. I'm not going to speak for you. I'm having a blast right now. I'm on top of the world.
Again, a lot of how you're speaking is not how I would, speak 10 years ago. But it's, again, that mind shift change, when I got into real estate 5.5 years ago, where, that first 12 months I was licensed, I was still teaching. So, I was setting 6 alarms in the morning, making sure on that 6th one I had to get up, otherwise I was going to be late. Now I don't think I've set an alarm maybe in the last 2 or 3 years outside of, an abnormal 3, o'clock alarm to hit, a flight or something.
Yeah, gotta catch a flight.
But I mean, like
that.
This morning, my body just wakes up because I'm in such a routine every single day. Excited to start the day, excited to see what, today is going to entail. Get up, get moving, get to the gym, get my morning routine that I get done really the last, 4 years, and has been a big reason why I've been able to be as disciplined as I have and do as well as I guess, I could say I've done in real estate, both on the investing and sales side. It's just consistency, and having the right mindset of waking up, loving what I do. And there's, this is not a knock, at on teachers at all, because, my sister's a teacher, my grandma's a teacher, my mom's a teacher. I was a teacher for 2 years. I've got the most amount of respect for teachers. It's just, for me, it was something, and this is unfortunately, a lot of folks are dealing with this right now. I know a lot of friends that I have a master's in education and I don't use it. I know a lot of the folks that I graduated alongside with a master's in education that don't use it. And it's, a sad reality where, there's going to be a lot of folks, and there always is on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, people where they, finally get to that final destination of like, this is the job I've wanted to do since I was 16. And then in a couple years realize it's not for them.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. 100%. And you have to understand that that's okay. That is okay. You have to forgive yourself. You have to give yourself some grace. It's okay, because you don't know what you don't know. And we'll put a pin in that, because I know, Casey, you and I can talk about that for the entire hour of the show. And then people are going to be like, I thought it was a real estate podcast.
Yeah.
So bringing it back to center here, you were teaching for 2 years. Where was this?
So I got my master's degree at Texas A&M in College Station in Texas. Okay. Another relationship situation actually led me to, this was more of an adult relationship. The first one that I mentioned was the high school situation. But it's also for folks that can relate to making big lifetime decisions based off relationships. I highly advise you to not, but also those decisions are what led me to, sitting here on the podcast here with you today. So I'm a firm believer that everything happens for a reason. But I did take a job in San Antonio, not even having San Antonio on the radar. And that was my first year of teaching. And And essentially the week I was going to go out to San Antonio for the first time and explore the city she was set to fly out, called me and told me she wasn't coming. So that led me to a city that I didn't really care for, didn't really even want to be at, and a whole bunch of free time. So, there was this one instance I remember, probably the first quarter of teaching, first couple months. I went downstairs in the math department and saw a woman crying. We had just kind of like celebrated her last year, like, hey, this is it, you're retiring, yay, congrats. And, behind closed doors, she was crying. She didn't have kids. She had worked her butt off in the math department for the last 35 years. Minimal retirement, a couple cats at home, and that was her retirement. Like, that's what she had to live for. But to be honest with you, I think it was kind of a forced retirement where we needed to get younger people in the department. So she was kind of being, forced to retire in a sense, but her home was that math department. She had given all she could to that job. And, she was essentially retiring, not having anything left at that point. And I was like, hey, alongside my mom still teaching middle school, it's like, is this going to be me in 30, 40 years? I just couldn't see it. And I tell people the way that led me to real estate is kind of a funny story. It was on Facebook where a fellow friend, and again, I'm 26, 27 at the time, a friend from high school actually had basically showed up on my Facebook feed that he was attending an event, how to make $50,000 in a month. Well, me being a new high school teacher, I'm like, this is probably the biggest scam in the world. I need to let him know, because I'm a big honcho guy with a master's degree and I'm making $52,000 a year. So this is definitely a scam. He was the one that was actually teaching the class. So,
so he was hosting the event.
Yeah. So he was,
hey buddy, this is a scam.
So this was a guy that, he was supposed to go into the Marine Corps with me and bailed. He also was probably not the most, I guess, intellectual, I guess you could say. He, I think he barely got through high school as far as graduating. So, my thoughts of him weren't, incredibly high. So I was, again, wanting to reach out to him to let him know that, hey, this is bogus. And then it switched to like, okay, you're hosting this. What the heck's going on? And then he mentioned real estate, mentioned a bunch of books to me, mentioned, what a lot of folks here may know as Bigger Pockets, mentioned Rich Dad, Poor Dad, mentioned wholesaling is what essentially he does. And that's when the snowball happened. It was book after book. It was podcast after podcast. It was, any kind of meetup, 9:00 at night, 6:00 in the morning, whatever I could do to indulge myself with as much real estate content as I could, I was doing.
Yeah. And it's funny how one little event in your network, like one little thing, that spark, we call it. What is that spark that just sets you off? And it could be a book. It could be someone handing you that book. I had a similar story, someone handing me the book and I was like, oh, this looks lame. And then I read it and I was like, that
was kind of like Rich Dad.
It was Rich Dad Poor Dad for me.
Yeah. I mean, I was at the beginning of my wrestling season, and a lot of my athletes, which my first year were juniors and seniors. So a lot of them at this point, I know one specifically that's in law school. So, they're essentially adults now at this point. Still follows me on social media, but it was a lot of my athletes that were giving me, trash talking me, because I was up in the bleachers on a Saturday morning reading a book. Right. And they were like, Coach, what are you doing? You're supposed to be helping us, get ready for this tournament. And I'm like, I can't put this book down, so. Yeah.
You're like, shut up, just stretch.
Exactly.
No, be the worst coach ever. No. So, okay. So you're in Texas and you have your moment, right? You're like on it. You're reading the books, you're doing this. I want to take this conversation somewhere to a question that we get a lot in our community. In the Active Duty Passive Income Facebook community. By the way, if y'all are listening to this podcast and you are not in the Active Duty Passive Income Facebook community, you can meet 70,000 of your best friends there every single day. Just go in and join. It's totally free. You should join. You get a bunch of information and you can learn, and you can connect with KC because he's constantly posting about his new short-term rental, which we're going to talk about. Don't worry. But you're the number one question we get from folks, especially typically the newbie investors, is, hey, I've been following your page for a while, or hey, active passive income, you guys are cool, I'm still in the military. I want to invest. I want to get started investing. So don't I have to get my real estate license first? Now, from my perspective, I am not a licensed realtor. I'm an investor first. So for me, I bring on agents, investor-friendly agents to my team, and they, like they're team members.
Yeah.
From your perspective, because you went the other way, you first became a real estate agent and then you transitioned to sales. So where do you see, like, what are the pros and cons of each? And if someone's listening to this podcast right now and they're considering like, I should get my real estate license or I shouldn't, what would you tell them from an investor mindset?
Yeah, so the biggest thing here, and this is probably going to clear up a lot of the confusion here, is getting a real estate license will benefit you, but it will not educate you on the investing side. Meaning it's not going to educate you on, how to house hack. It's not going to educate you on how to flip. It's not going to educate you on any of the investing realm, I guess you could say, of real estate. Mm-hmm. But what it will do is it will help you once you get that knowledge to be able to take basically a little bit of that money and put it back in your pocket. Also, me, myself, when I do invest, I represent myself. So I'm able to recoup some of the more than likely commission that's going to be paid to what would be typically a buyer's agent in that case if they're buying a house. I'm able to recoup that myself. Now, that's not to say, hey, go get your real estate license, you pass your class today, and now you can represent yourself for, a large investment purchase tomorrow. There's still a lot of education that you need to do from an investing standpoint to know really what you're getting yourself into.
Yeah. And just to put some numbers into context out there, I just sold one of my assets and I think I paid my agent $48,000 from a seller's perspective. So if you're a licensed real estate agent, you can at least, take half of that and reduce your closing expense because you still got to pay, whatever the other side of the agent, the buyer's agent. Right. Mm-hmm. But like, you could take like that's pretty good. That significantly reduces your costs. Now, not every deal is like that, and it's different and it's structured. For folks listening to this, KC, who really want to do both, and like, what kind of advice would you give them as just hey, I'm a new realtor. It's 2023. I'm a new realtor. Like, what kind of advice would you give them from that perspective?
So from my particular job, as I've already mentioned here a couple times, I was a high school teacher. So there was still practices in the evening. Texas is an incredible state to be a coach in. I was really 75% coach and 25% teacher. I really honestly, especially when I did move to Dallas, because I taught a year in San Antonio, then moved to Dallas and taught my second year in Dallas. The Dallas coaching job was basically a dream come true. If real estate had never even come to the mix, there was eventually a point where I was literally going to be paid as a teacher, but really not even teach. I was already kind of, because of a block schedule and just how they do it here in Texas, they try to save people from not having, the Brett Favres come and coach public football at your local high school kind of thing. So you've got to be an employee, but by being an employee and being a teacher myself, I basically was coaching wrestling during, while other people were teaching, which allowed me to kind of slip my phone out of my pocket and text a client back. Or during my conference periods, instead of, prepping for the next class, I was, hopping on a conference call with the out-of-state buyer, So if you've got the flexibility with your day job, I run a majority of my business off of my phone and remotely anyways. Now, I can't leave during lunch and go show a couple properties. But there's definitely times where I've stepped away during a conference period and grabbed a coffee with someone, which is, I can do whatever I want during my conference period. So if you've got a flexible job, where you've got your weekends off or you've got your nights off, where, you can continue to mentor or continue to meet those clients, because communication is huge in this industry. If you're stuck at a 9 to 5 and you can't really utilize your personal phone at all, it's going to be tough because you're going to have, especially as business grows, you're going to have people that reach out that need a pretty quick response. And that's my job as a realtor, to communicate effectively. But no, if you've got a flexible job, great opportunity to get your license, kind of build build your real estate sales side up, or even just get your real estate license and solely use it for the intent to invest, but still work your full-time job. A lot of folks that I speak to, they get this high and huge ambitious drive where they think that they're going to leave their six-figure job and pursue real estate full-time. And to give you some clarity, I didn't make $1 for the first 5 months I was licensed. Most people probably can't go 5 months without getting paid. So I kept my job until I felt I was comfortable, and then made the transition out.
Yeah, and that's definitely the smart way to do it. And you mentioned job flexibility in today's day and age, where a lot of people are working remote. I mean, shoot, even at the Pentagon, like I said, I'm a reservist. But even the people who are there, sometimes they're working 2 days in the office, 3 days at home, 3 days in the office, 2 days at home. And you're logged in and stuff, but if you have that flexibility, you can make something work. It's all about your level of drive and how bad do you want it. But I love the perspective that you just shared about kind of that transition plan. I mean, it took me, I planned my transition for 3 years, and I implemented it slowly. And now I'm able to, live my dream right now and talk to KC. It's my dream right now.
No, I'm right there with you. I got my license, and I'll tell you, I got my license to just kind of do real estate part time. I was like, hey, maybe 3 to 5 years, I'll make enough. And this was me. I was getting my license in San Antonio with the intention to stay in San Antonio. Coaching differences there led me to Dallas, thankfully. But I got licensed the first week in Dallas, and I didn't know anyone. I'm not from Texas. I'm from Washington State originally. Military kind of took me all over, and then I got to Texas eventually. But I don't have a sphere here. I didn't get, I wasn't raised here, so I don't know anyone. So, it was really from day one building this from the ground up. And I was thinking 3 to 5 years, and I gave my notice, I think at month 8 of living in Dallas, to basically finish off that year of teaching and pursue it full time at that point.
That's incredible. So let's talk what you've built from a real estate sales side. So you're still in Dallas, yes?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. So you're still in Dallas, and you started, getting traction. And what year was this when you left your coaching job?
So I moved to Dallas summer 2017, got licensed a week later, and bought a duplex within the first 60 days of moving here. Because I had about a year of experience in San Antonio, about 5 properties that fell through with inspections and lack of knowledge. One property I nearly closed on, and they called 2 days before closing to verify employment. And again, was not fired, but I was essentially not offered retirement. So that's what led me to Dallas. And when an employer, gets a call for verification of employment, and you no longer are, employable, your loan falls through. So I got really close to closing on a property in San Antonio multiple different times. So I was chomping at the bits basically as soon as I moved to Dallas. So I got a duplex under my belt with my VA loan pretty quickly. And then the summer of 2018, after that first year in Dallas of teaching, is when I basically said, hey, I got a really cheap trip to New Zealand. Once I come back, this, foot on the pedal, school's done, I'm done teaching, it's real estate full time, let's go.
So let's talk numbers on this duplex for folks who are getting into real estate investing, because I presume this was some sort of house hack situation. Yes. Yeah.
The numbers are gonna be kind of gross here because it was in 2017 in Dallas.
Yeah. So, okay. Talk to me. Talk to me, Goose.
So purchased 285. I went through, and I also tell people your returns are going to be based on your sacrifice here. So this was a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. Duplex on both sides, so 6-bedroom, 4-bath. Later down the road, I had to evict the other tenant that I essentially inherited. And when I sold the property 5 years down the road, I found out the tenant that replaced me was living in like a maggot-infested, disgusting side of my duplex that I once lived in. Again, by no means is this stuff pretty, but the pretty part is the numbers. So let's get into those. So 285 purchase price. We're going to exclude, all the fees of what I had to incur over those 5.5 years.
But VA loan, so zero down effectively. Yeah.
Yeah, and okay. I rolled my closing costs in, so I think it was very minimal, maybe $1,000 or $2,000 bringing to closing, like
sure.
minimal down. I had, small amount of disability at the time, so funding fee was waived, all that good stuff. And then, so I got in the door for a couple $1,000s, and I moved in immediately downstairs, and I rented out the 2 bedrooms upstairs for $600 a piece. So we had $1,200 on my side, and I, not including, whatever I hypothetically would have paid for rent. And then the other side was initially renting for $1,400. So combining 12 and 1,400, $2,600 a month.
So let me stop you. Let me stop you right here.
Yeah.
So were you doing, because on the other side of the duplex, or upstairs, downstairs, whatever, that situation, you were renting out by the room. So were these furnished executive rentals?
No. So they're just roommates upstairs.
Got it. Okay, got it.
So I rented my upstairs and my unit to two girls upstairs, and then kind of interchanged. I had a guy move in, and I didn't stay there for long. I was only there for about 6 months. But the other side was the tenant that initially paid me $1,400 a month until they just decided to not pay me anymore. So
this was the inherited tenant from the last owner that you bought it. Okay, got it. Tracking.
So $2,600 total in rent, and I think my initial mortgage before taxes kind of started to raise was like $1,680. And again, so I'm closing in on over $900 above my mortgage, and I'm living in the downstairs master suite. So fast forward 5 years, again, I had tenants move out. I had an eviction. I had the last situation where my last tenant, who had been, when you think of it from a numbers perspective, they had stayed there. I think they were paying above market rent too, because another lesson I learned, they had bad credit and some other issues on their credit report, but they were willing to pay above market rent. They paid above market rent for about 3 years. But when they moved out, I had to essentially spend $20,000 to $25,000 in remodeling to sell the unit itself. But so that unit I actually sold about 5.5 years later. This year, I guess now it's 2023. So I sold in 2022, about May timeframe. And I actually got $630,000 for it. 285 purchase, and I sold it for 630.
Wow.
So again, there was some additional expenses incurred at the end there to get it sold, but because I had only lived there for go ahead.
Yeah. I'd like to highlight some strategies here that you implemented, because looking at the numbers, purchase price $285. You're coming into it. One side's renting for $1,200, and you're living in the other side. Now it's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. So you're living in the other side. So you're thinking in your head, you're like, okay, well, strictly on paper from a lender's perspective, this thing might break even. Maybe it's probably going to be underwater because it's only getting $1,200 a month. So what can I do? Like, you're putting your investor hat on. You're saying, what can I do to increase my cash flow? So instead of, I don't know, you just saying like, well, I guess this is the deal. The deal's the deal, and that's what it is. What you did was you said, no, I'm going to rent out the 2 other rooms at $600 a piece, thus adding an additional $1,200 to $1,400 because, it fluctuates, maybe $650 a piece, whatever it was, to your gross rent roll. And then you bring a property that was below the 1% rule to the 1% rule and maybe a bit over, and you make it work. So having that strategy in place, and that's what we talk about. You're listening to this podcast. Guys, this is a business. Run it like a business, right? And you're living there and you're making sense. So a lot of people, KC, would make a counterpoint and say, I don't want to live with 2 randos.
I literally had this.
I don't want to do
but you
got to make the sacrifices. Yeah.
So I had this conversation yesterday, and it's because I've done it, a lot of people reach out to me and want me to help them, which, I love.
Sure.
It's the teacher inside of me. So I help a lot of people do this all the time over the last 5.5 years in Dallas since being licensed. And I had a very call yesterday with most of the time it's a gentleman reaching out and saying, hey, I've got a girlfriend. I'm like, oh, well, or I've got a wife. And this is not, being judgy or stereotypical at all. But oftentimes, when you involve a second person, sacrifice tends to not be as important. So I'll speak to her. Oh, I got a girlfriend, and she there's no way she would want to live with a roommate, or vice versa. It could be the girl
Mm-hmm.
reaching out and I've got a boyfriend. We're getting engaged, or we're about to get engaged. He doesn't want to live with anyone else. I'm like, okay, well, if you don't live with anyone, then there's not a lot of sacrifice, and you're not going to get as good of a return. So it's up to you guys in terms of what direction you want to go. And those are the folks that oftentimes, go buy new construction or something, so.
And then you're losing out on your total return over time, because at the end of the day, you sold this at the absolute peak of the market in May 2022, and I just sold my asset in what month is it now? It's January. I sold it in the beginning of January, but I had it listed on there. It was under contract for like freaking 90 days because it was just a bigger asset. But but the point is, you bought it low and you sold it high, and that's the most important, because you don't make your money, Casey, as you know this, you don't make your money when you buy a property. You make your money, you don't make your money when you sell the property. You make it when you buy. You make it when you smartly buy up front, and you're on the path to progress, and that you're going to cash flow along the way, but your big check comes at the end. So you converted that $285,000, and maybe it sounds like at the end of 5.5 years, you might have invested 25, 30K into a remodel. Maybe let's call it 50K, whatever. Yeah. You're in this for $325,000, $330,000, sound fair? Yep. And you sold it for what? $625,000?
$630,000. Yeah.
$630,000. So you walked away with a cool $300,000. Representing yourself, saving money on commissions there. Now, the next question, what did you do with it? Did you do a little 1031? Tell me you got that little 1031 going.
So there's and this is another thing too. Like, I have one of my best friends who's one of the top mortgage brokers here. He's a veteran too. He's always been about a year or two ahead of me in business, but not on the real estate sales side of things. So he's taught me a lot, about how to properly file my taxes and make sure my business is profitable. That way I can, be set up correctly to continue to purchase. Because that's, in order for me as a 1099 individual to continue to buy properties, I've got to have my business set up, appropriately to do so. So he's educated, and I've watched him fail in a lot of aspects and be like, okay, I'm not going to do that. And this was a big fail on my part, and I'm still paying for it right now. But yes, 1031 exchange. I got approved for a luxury cabin up in Broken Bow, Oklahoma. Initially, I wanted to kind of take this and get a small cabin in a Broken Bow and get a small condo in Colorado for the mountains. But I said, screw it. I want just a souped up really nice cabin in Broken Bow. So I think they're doing the fireplace, the stonework on the fireplace right now. So we're projected probably to finish in the next 4 or 5 months. But going back to the 1031 exchange, I initially got approved for the entire amount down, which I think it was a little over $300,000. This is what I was going to get from the proceeds of that duplex sale.
Sure.
But somewhere along the way, there was some kind of miscommunication where I assumed that I could get approved, for a commercial note. It's a commercial construction loan for 20% down. But since it's a small bank, they basically have a round table of people, 5 people, and they either approve or deny your loan. Versus, larger banks, it's much different. And they wouldn't approve me for 20% down. I had to put the whole $300K down. Well, I had already closed on the property, elected to 1031 200 and some change, and then deposit the rest into my personal bank account. So that 100,000 was then taxed at my going rate for income, which is about 36%, to then be used on the cabin anyways. So basically just tossed around $38,000 there, which was a big financial learning curve for me there. But again,
we call that in the industry a kick in the pants. That's what that's called.
So, but the good news is the cabin. I mean, we're talking about, yes, I'm going to be paying some money out of pocket for the remodel before I had to sell it. Yes, I'm going to have to pay this tax bill and the $100K that I, got deposited into my personal account rather than the 1031. But I'm still really, all that money is just gains in my eyes. So for a property that I purchased, put a couple $1,000s in, is now set to be complete, like I said, in 4 or 5 months, valued at about 1.5. And my payoff is like 7. I think my loan value on it is about 775.
That's great.
So we're talking
you almost
about
have 50% equity in that.
Yeah. So it's going to be
awesome.
renting out. It's going to be again another expense for me to furnish it as a short-term rental up there, but it will be renting for I'm going from an older 1980s duplex renting for, I think at the end I was renting 1,600 to 1,800 bucks a month, to a Broken Bow cabin that will rent for $500 to $1,200 a night.
Boom. Yes.
So
big step up. Big step up. Love me some short-term rentals. We're in week 3 of the cohort class 2301 and 2302 of the Military Short-Term Rental Academy. Last night we just did our whole run the numbers section, and we have our proprietary calculator and all that stuff. And I was walking them through it all, and the numbers are awesome in short-term rentals. Even this morning, actually, I was going through my own portfolio and I went and I adjusted the fees. I found out, hey, my cleaning fee is 20% less than everyone else. And
more money there.
My pet fee is 10% less. So I went and I kind of pulled some levers and made some adjustments. And that's something I really, truly love. And Casey, I mean, you know this already, but I love about short-term rentals. There's so many different levers to pull from a business perspective. Long-term rental, the rent's the rent, man. You're signed up for a 12-month lease and you get great stability out of that. You know what's going to happen. But if you're willing to take a little bit more risk and be a little bit more hands-on on a short-term rental, you could pull a lot more levers and you can really make something happen. So, okay, cool. So you got this thing in Broken Bow. And we're running out of time. We're gonna have to have you on again. This is so much fun. I love talking to you. What else? What's in your pipeline for 2023? And we didn't even talk about your real estate agent side and how you have a ton of agents working for you and that whole side of it. But yeah, I mean, beyond that, what's next for 2023 for you?
Just for me, there's a lot changing in my personal life, behind the scenes, I guess you could say. So getting my feet back under me this year, and just that cabin itself, furnishing it, and in the back covered patio area is going to have a pool spa and a hot tub, and I have to furnish pretty nicely the entire house, and it sleeps 24. So
it's a big house. This is a big house.
Yeah, so we're talking I'm projecting at least $100,000 to furnish this thing. But again, short-term rentals, you furnish something, those are expenses that will be able to help offset the income that it generates for basically the second half of 2023. But over the last 5.5 years, I've accrued not just that cabin, but over $5 million in real estate. So I'm at a point, especially, I just closed on a short-term rental in Florida, just a small little house, last week. Going to get that going here soon. But basically, when the cabin's the last one to really start producing income. At that point, all of my rentals will be creating such a large amount of income that I will basically have to purchase gut job or really run down homes to fork, $100,000 remodel to use that as a expense to help offset the income that the rest of my properties
are. My friend, we got to get you into the commercial world.
Yeah,
you don't know depreciation. You don't know cost segregation. We're talking cost segs and rehabs on a single family. We got to get you into a $30 million property.
Yeah, that's
get a little cost seg on that.
Yeah, that's the next. I do have one commercial office building, but the commercial side, I've very much not taken much steps into. I guess
action on. Yeah. Well, just hang around me more, and we'll get you squared away. How's that sound?
Perfect.
Awesome, dude. Oh, man, this has been so much fun talking to you. I really appreciate it. It is that time to bring you into the bonus round. It's the same 4 questions we ask each and every guest. Are you ready, my friend?
Go ahead.
Question number 1: what book or software has really been crushing it for you lately?
So I know I mentioned earlier in the call, I think when I first got licensed, well, go back a little bit further. When I first picked up Rich Dad Poor Dad, that was the first book. Being an analytical guy, just numbers guy, I didn't like reading, but it was the first book that I had read in almost a decade at that point. And I think I read 10 to 15 books within the first 6 months of being licensed. And then since then, gone back to not really reading. So the Rich Dad Poor Dad is what set it all off. And I have a handful of books that I did read. Just it's one of those things where I need to start implementing back into my life, but it's just time is always an issue.
I hear you, man. I hear you. And honestly, it's very similar. I go on these fluctuations where like I read a ton of books and podcasts and audio and blah, 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 and then I like take a year off and I'm like, I look back on that year and I was like, man, I read like 2 books this year. So in my mastermind, you know, the guys challenged me in the mastermind. They said, you got to read 10 books this year. And I was like,
oh boy,
God, 10 books. So I'm just like, oh God. So I'm proud to report it's the end of January. I have 2 books done.
Wow. You're well ahead.
Yeah, and that's the thing. But like when someone calls me out, I'm a competitive dude, so I'm like,
oh, then yeah, hold me accountable, and I'll actually do it. You know.
Yeah. So that's the big thing. But regardless, Rich Dad Poor Dad, incredible book,
hands down,
changed so many lives. It's just amazing. Question number 2 for you: who is your biggest hero and why?
So I would say my high school wrestling coach, rest in peace, Coach Bodner. Former, I guess, shouldn't say former, Marine true and true. He basically he was also my weight training coach, 0 hour every single day for all 4 years while I was in high school. Really instilled that discipline in me to get up, to get moving, to work my butt off, and showed you really, hey, you know, and I also kind of laugh and think about it now, you know, in terms of kind of the direction everything is headed. Like he would not be an appropriate coach with conditions of what need to be met, I guess, nowadays. But you know, wrestling practices were not easy, and they pushed you to the limit, and even further. You know, we had to have people quit because we didn't have a large enough wrestling room to really have all the folks that turned out stick with it. So you know, he pushed me to my limit and then showed me that wasn't my limit and showed me that I could push harder. And that's really stayed true with me, you know, throughout the Marine Corps, throughout building my own business. I've had a lot of ups and downs, you know, just keep pushing forward.
Yeah. And when you talk about those quitters in high school wrestling, you're talking to one right now. Big quitter right here. I was on the team. Man. And I think it was the first time they made me put on like trash bags and sweatpants and run in the natatorium to sweat to get down to weight. And then I make weight and then the meets are all damn day long.
Yeah.
Like in my head, I was like, yeah, you go on, you wrestle, you hit someone with a chair, you call it a day. That was my interpretation. And after the first meet, I was like, you know what? I think swimming's going to be more fun.
Yeah.
Not for me. So I joined the swim team, had a lot more fun.
I actually saw a guy the other day at the gym wearing a trash bag over his sweatshirt. It was kind of funny. I had to come over to him. I had to come over to him and actually tell him how to use it appropriately. It goes underneath the sweatshirt.
It goes underneath.
Yeah. So,
over the trash. Yeah, that's not going to do it.
So he came back, you know, properly equipped, but I could tell he was a wrestler trying to cut some weight. So it was kind of funny.
Yeah. Maybe he's trying to stay dry. Right?
Yeah. Inside of the gym.
Inside of the gym. Yes.
Yeah.
Question number 3 for you, man. What do you like to do for fun?
So for me, one thing that real estate has done for me, you know, I've been able to go full time and build my real estate portfolio as well, has been the flexibility to travel. Traveling for me is completely opposite of my dad. My dad, I don't think, has any interest and never has, even though he traveled for work all the time, to really go anywhere. You know, he's going to basically die in the home that I was born in 33 years ago. Doesn't want to move, doesn't want to travel, nothing. For me, I've been to Australia, New Zealand, all over Europe, Peru, all over the country, United States, and I'm still quite young at 33 with the opportunity to still, you know, I've got my planned trips this year and looking at another 2 trips to Europe.
Where are you going? Hit me with the planned trips. I want to know those planned trips.
Yeah, so I've actually brought on a new videographer that's going to be doing some shoots out in Ireland, June timeframe, and he's already being basically covered expense-wise to go out there. So I'm going to come with him, and we'll get a ton of cool footage and film a bunch of stuff out in Ireland. But I'm also Irish, so it's
that's cool.
my home country if you go back far enough.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, I'm we're looking at, my wife and I are looking at Vienna, and France. We did Paris last year, but we're gonna do maybe Champagne and south of France, and really we had so much fun in Paris, man. Oh yeah. My gosh. All right, that's awesome. Now the last question for you. It's our kind of our most important question here.
Mm-hmm.
If you had to boil down what you've learned in the last, gosh, how many years? 5.5, 6, 7 years. What, and you had to offer 3 nuggets to someone listening to this podcast right now, if they're trying to get started in real estate, whether they're trying to be a real estate agent or they're trying to just get started and leverage that VA loan like you did. What are some of these nuggets, dude?
So let's use a Nike slogan and just do it, because that I think is the biggest hurdle for most people, I guess you could say. Now, as you mentioned before, you win when you purchase the home and you purchase it correctly. But I can tell you, there's not a ton of people. Again, everything I think all of us are looking to do. We're not looking to buy a short-term rental or long-term rental or duplex today and sell it tomorrow to get rich, right? These are all long-term investments. Most real estate transactions are going to be long-term investments. The issue is people, I know people 5.5 years ago that didn't purchase anything, and I was in the same boat. I had just purchased a duplex, $285,000. I've snowballed that into $5 million, so don't do it stupidly, but do it, would be my biggest advice for folks. Second of all, morning routine, I kind of hit it a little bit, just consistency. I don't think you look at anyone that's, a professional athlete or anyone that's really in the news at all that is great at what they do it consistently. So in terms of, if you're wanting to be an investor, if you're wanting to get your real estate license, whatever you do, you need to do it well. And in order to do it well, you need to do it consistently. So I'd say that's probably my second nugget. And, third is going to be relationships. I would say that's been the biggest asset in my business. Surrounding myself with the best friend that I mentioned earlier, that's kind of always 1 step or 10 steps in front of me. Leaning on him, allowing him to educate me in as many realms of real estate as possible. But also, I see that now where people are reaching out to me and wanting me to kind of be in their, circle to,
Sure.
Because I have the experience, I have the knowledge, I have, failed and had plenty of successes that they can learn from. Because it's one thing to pick up a book and read a book and educate yourself or watch a podcast, maybe, this particular podcast, for example. But
yeah, everyone watch this.
Yeah, but meeting someone personally, face to face, building that personal relationship with them, and or business relationship, I should say, it is going to be a huge key factor in helping you. Because like for me, when it comes to that best friend, if he just slept in every single day and I never saw him at the office, and he never texted me back and then never helped me, he wouldn't be, where he is today. And I certainly wouldn't be where I am today, because that relationship really pushed both of us, to get to where we are today.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, your network is your net worth, and you're the average of the 5 people around you. So
love it.
It is so true. And now that you're in my network and I'm in your network, KC, anything you need from me, if you want to learn about how to syndicate or do a massive $75 million fund, or you want to really expand, you can go and call me. And now anyone in my network is at your disposal. That's the true power of networking. So people throw around this networking, especially when you're transitioning to the military. It's like, oh, networking, it's just I'm going to make a LinkedIn profile. No, You got to have conversations with people. You got to like actually have a conversation. You know, a good mentor of mine once told me that networking is simply a conversation with a purpose. Mm-hmm. That's all it is. It's a conversation with a purpose. Have your elevator pitch. Even if you're not even selling anything, you're selling yourself all the time. Have that pitch nailed down, and you know, you'll be put in the right places. And that's really how it goes. Dude, this was awesome. Thank you so much for coming on the show. For folks who want to get in touch with you, maybe they're in Dallas, maybe they want to take you out for coffee, get some lunch or something like that, or just link up. How can they do that?
Yeah, so I've got a Instagram. It's just my name, KC last name, so KC.McKeown, McKeown. And I think if you just search that on YouTube too, KC McKeown, maybe type in real estate alongside it. I have a whole YouTube channel where I do as much education as I can regarding investing in real estate, regarding you know credit card hacking and using mileage points to fly for free, anything personal finance. I show it all on my YouTube channel as much as I can, and those would be the two biggest platforms to reach out to me, to connect with me, and follow my journey.
That is incredible. So you heard it here first. Follow KC. He is absolutely incredible. Dude, I had so much fun. We're definitely going to have you on for round 2. We're going to dig in more maybe to the real estate agent side of things, and unpack that, because there's so much more out there. I appreciate it, brother. Thank you for your time.
Of course. Thank you.